So the Open Land Foundation had asked me to mount Art on the Trails for their 25th anniversary. And the 25th anniversary was at Beals Preserve, and it was very casual. I just put a call for art, and somehow things started appearing on the trails. And there was this wonderful 10-year-old boy and his grandmother who made a cow out of cardboard and painted it and put it right near where the cows are in the meadow. And the Southborough Extended Day program hung dozens and dozens of God's Eye yarn structures hanging in the woods, in the pines. And a whole variety of other things, including my little mushrooms and just a variety of completely whimsical, wonderful things.
It was really exciting to get your email, because not only was it a way to get to know some of my additional neighbors in this wonderful community of Southborough, but to be able to reconnect like that and help you in any way possible to sort of map out this initiative that you wanted to extend and elevate and renew was my absolute pleasure.
I remember saying to you, what's the theme going to be? What are we going to, what is this going to be about? I said, I just want people in this really turbulent political time and this challenging time of being so connected with technology, I just want people to have solace in the woods. I had probably never said that sentence in my life.
Yeah.
And it just came out, and we
it's
went
so
from there.
important to just have those conversations and
Yeah.
free think things and brainstorm and be able to have a back and forth.
Yes.
Because that's what releases so many creative ideas.
Yes, yes. So what an amazing click, how
Yeah.
everything clicked and everything
That's great.
fit together, and then off we went, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we announced it and we put it out there, and you knew all these people who said, oh, Mary's doing this, I want to do this because Mary's doing this.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Crystal and Greg and Lisa, and I'm trying to remember who else you knew that just, they all were very excited to be part of this because
glad.
Mary Tinty was being the
Oh,
juror.
that's very kind of you. But these are all tremendous artists whose work naturally fits with this kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was really thrilled that they wanted to seize that moment and try and create something amazing for the preserve.
Yeah. So one of the things that you and I got to do together, we did a site walk and we talked about some of the opportunities within the woods where things might go, and then we got these submissions, and you had a really clear vision about how you wanted the work to fit together, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the site walk through the preserve with you was really important. I had been, Dave and I had walked the preserve in the years since you and I first connected. It's a beautiful, special place that for a relatively, small terrain, if you will, in terms of its expanse, there are so many different little trails and little nooks and crannies and a great diversity within the preserve itself. So between the pine grove and the pond and more open areas overlooking former farming fields and grazing fields, the opportunities to do a really eclectic mixture of art were there. And I was so happy to be able to have that experience behind me, but also to do that site walk with you with a forethought of, or at the front of our minds, figuring out the kinds of things that could go where, and how a specific work of art could enhance or benefit from a particular location within the preserve. So with those experiences in the back of my mind, I was really excited to dive in and see the kinds of submissions that came in.
It actually was bequeathed to us in 2008, and then the dedication was 2009.
And with that came these events and a special program called Art in the Woods.
That was yes, in 2013 it was Art in the Woods. And that's when I probably met you on the trail one day when you're walking your dog, and I was always ready to chat with whoever was there. And of course we go back with art programs anyway. And we wanted to do a celebration, and we wanted art, we wanted more, and there you were, out there with your dog, and as you said you never think inside, you don't have to be told to think outside the box, because you said, what? There's a box.
Southborough Open Land Foundation was founded in 1988 by a group of concerned citizens who were watching the agricultural land slowly disappearing in town. And they founded it to provide an organization to which people could donate land. Frequently, families wanted to be able to donate their land. And among the founders was Elaine Beals. So she has done a lot. She was also on the Conservation Commission at that time, and so was very concerned about the environment. Let's see, the land, as I mentioned, was given in 2008, and from there we wanted to have a spot where people could go. The land had always been open to the public, but most people didn't know about it. It was really kind of a neighborhood place, and we wanted it to become something that everybody would be aware of in town. And so that's when we had the opening dedication in 2009. I do want to mention, though, that we are a private organization, a 501c3. We are not affiliated with the town at all, and people get very confused about that. We have an identity crisis. They think we are funded by the town government, and we are not. It's all membership fees and grants, such as the one that's making this possible. In the case of Beals Preserve, as I had mentioned, the neighbors were very aware of it, but the rest of the town wasn't. So one of the things that we have done is put in a lot of trails so that people have places to go within Beals Preserve, and we've worked with Eagle Scouts to do that. We've worked with Liberty Fellowship they've volunteered and cleaned up on the property. We welcome anybody that's willing to help maintain the property, because it is 56 acres that requires a lot of attention.
A lot of what we do as an organization is to increase awareness of the Open Land Foundation, who we are and what we do, and get people onto the property, seeing the wonderful trails, the fields, the woods that we have right in our own town, that we want people to come out and enjoy and appreciate. Because once people get out there, and you can see that a lot of times people, once they're on the trail and taking their time, sometimes they can even slow their pace down and start to look at things. So our mission is always to encourage people to develop more of an appreciation for being outside, appreciating nature, appreciating open space, open land, so that there will be more of an interest in preserving and protecting the little that we do have left. So when we started talking about an art show and you got involved, you were, of course, it started growing rapidly, and making more of it, really promoting it more. All of this did, as we hoped it would, brought a lot more people onto the trails, and then we can give information to people to visit the other properties and fall in love with those too.
There were a range of submissions in terms of how people chose to interpret the theme, and it became clear that the work this time around that I felt was going to be the best example of the initiative and the theme and this re-inaugural year, I should say.
Yeah.
There was a really nice through thread of work that took on a more conceptual frame of reference. It was a little more abstract, it was a little subtle, and those works then, for me, my selections started to be crystallized when I could see how these works were going to respond to one another. So there were a number of other submissions that very easily were of the caliber that could be in an exhibition like this. But I felt that the strongest statement overall was going to be one that had works selected that were really uniquely talking to one another in addition to the site and the theme.
Yes.
So that's why we have works that are using materials that are either subtly blending in with or drastically contrasting the natural elements of the preserve. That's why we have pieces that are offering transparency, new ways of looking through things, or frankly pieces that are using the unexpected. And I realize that's not quite the theme for this year, it's more the theme for next year.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can't ever truly get away from that when you're working in the outdoor environment with artistic materials. And so if we pick up on the idea of solace, there were a couple of artists that interpreted that as meditation, as as something that's calming. Some artists found solace in the woods to be tapping into a prehistoric history, the evolution of the space. And some artists chose to drop something chaotic and frenzy in the middle of that space and really sort of jar you in the best possible way into finding your own calm. So those were some of the ideas that emerged right away in looking at the artwork, and helped me figure out which pieces I thought would not only fit the theme the best, but would create a wonderful sort of circuit from one to the other.
And then there were the moments where there was interaction. She left a basket at the trail, at the edge of the trail, with the sign, and it said, "Wrap your own." And there was yarn and there were scissors, and that was incredibly exciting for young children. I took tours of families out on probably 6 different occasions in which we stood there for a long time while these children made their own art. And there was something so spectacular about the joy. It wasn't high up on a wall and untouchable.
Right.
It's all ceramic. Well, the part that isn't ceramic is metal piping, actually. It's like a lightning rod that I buy at Home Depot. And then rock, which I gather different places around New England. This one, I think, was gathered off the coast of Manchester by the sea. And I figured out ways to make pieces tall by using, essentially in this case, sort of more of a totem idea, or at least a stacked idea. Each of the pieces that is stacked, as I said, is ceramic. They're all hand-built. They're built with, and my thing is about texture, so I like to impress into the clay an industrial texture. And I have a whole collection of textures that I can press into the clay. And so you see, for example, this is what I call a plate or a pedal. This has a texture, one texture on one side, a different texture on the other side, and I have, playing with, in this case, with color on it. In texture, in clay, in glaze, it does different things depending upon what type of glaze you have on it. So this one kind of makes the texture itself pop out. This one hides it a little more. So the idea is these cairns. And I call them cairns, and other people may look at them as stacks or something like that. But I like that. It evokes for me a sense of wonder, a sense of wonderment, and of adventure. Played with that idea, making what I call rocks out of ceramic. This is a hollow piece, and it's hand-built, hand-textured, made of two halves, joined together with wet clay, fired once, actually textured, and then fired once, then glazed and fired a second time. You'll see that there's actually holes in both sides of this, so that, now it won't fit in this one because it's too small a hole, but so that it will fit on top of a rod, which is essentially the infrastructure for the works, which allows me to stack ceramic as though it were rock. I'm trying to push it a little bit, which also makes it a little uncomfortable for the viewer. I mean, it's attractive, but you realize, no, that can't be. That can't actually stand up. I've developed these techniques of stacking them, of even cushioning them, so I can, so it works together. So I actually have washers in there, and of creating what I mentioned, the pedals, the neck pieces. These are a critical part too. And there's a lot of trial and error here. A lot of error. First of all, the location was great. As soon as I saw the invitation to apply, I said, this just works for me, because I love being on trails, and when I'm not doing art, when I'm not working my real job, I'm mountain biking out on trails. So I'm always on trails, and I do trail building, and so trails are where I'm comfortable. That's where I like to be.
This body of work began when I was thinking about the environments that we live in. And at the time I was living in Boston. So I was living in and working in a very urban environment. And I was in grad school, so I was thinking about what influenced me as I was growing up, and what has remained important to me in terms of the work and what I wanted to talk about. And so I grew up in rural Massachusetts, and I grew up exploring the woods and just like spending as much time as I could outside. And so nature has always been a pretty important component in why I build things and the things that I build. Thinking about what material I wanted to work with, concrete fit a lot of things that fit conceptually, in terms of it was this material that I was surrounded by. I was living in these like buildings made out of concrete. I was walking on sidewalks and road, like everything was concrete. And it's a very ubiquitous material in the built world, in the history of building. And it's also very natural in a way that I don't think we think about it. It's mined from the earth. So I was trying to figure out, how do I combine those ideas of an industrial built environment with also thinking about nature and the influences that those processes, that natural phenomena has had on me. Making a large form comprised of a lot of small pieces was a solution, was a logistical solution to that, but it was also became kind of an important conceptual component to the work, where these are all separate small pieces, but they all fit together in a very specific way. They all rely on each other in very specific ways. So if you lose this one, that's the end of the entire piece. You can't go back and replace it. So working kind of like from the bottom up is important. And also this idea of you have kind of one shot, and you can't, like, for instance, you can't go back. Like, I don't go back and fix things that are in the middle. It was one of the art listings, and I saw it, and what struck me first was the title of the show, and finding solace in the woods. And so that immediately grabbed me, because when I mentioned, like, I grew up in the woods, and a lot of times that's why I would go to the woods. I would go to the woods, or I'd take a walk somewhere because I was looking for something. And sometimes I was just like looking to clear my head or think about something and be by myself. And also I was always, whenever I was exploring the woods or the fields, I was always looking for something. And not anything specific, but I was always looking for like a surprise or a treasure or something. I always thought that I'd find something. The title of that and the idea of walking in the woods and finding something or coming across something unexpected and new and exciting. That was like, it was great. That's just kind of like what I think about all the time. So that was really exciting. So that's why I was excited to apply, and I thought that would be a great thing to be involved with. When we drove in with the truck and the trailer, it was like a beautiful day when we came, and we were driving down the main road there, and everything was green. It's great because I can never know what someone else is going to see when they look at these things that I make. I have no idea. I mean, I have like all of my ideas and my reasons for them, but it's a whole other world when you can get feedback from a wide range of people, especially people who have no prior knowledge of any of it. And so it's really valuable to me, just as an education for me to be able to hear feedback. It's a really valuable experience for me, and there were fantastic questions and some really interesting feedback, and just hearing about what people see, like what are the associations, whether it's like color or form or what it makes them think of or what it makes them remember is great.
What we really want to talk about is the poetry experience from the poets, and also as editors of the book, and the process of accepting submissions.
But the idea, I love the idea to more projects like that. They are different. They are unique experience, no better or worse, but different. And if you are spreading projects like that around Massachusetts, around the United States, around the world, you are doing much better for art and poetry. So this is the thing that I think. But they are different. The projects are different. They are not like the same. I don't have a curator, don't have someone from the museum. It's like people together, like bring art and poetry together. Yeah.
I think it was a really good experience. I think it was a good, at least from my point of view, it was very nice to have someone to work with and to do this with, to take it all on. Because there was a lot of reading and there was a lot of discussion about each of the poems, and it was good to have someone to bounce off, my opinions and ideas on. And a lot of times she came from a completely different direction, which I think is important to have, the different opinions come in about the work. I think too that it was just good to have another, opinion.
different point of views bring together,
Yes.
and it's different as a
Yes.
experience for the project. I think it's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would bring together to work with component of poetry, but we are together, work with art, and
Yeah.
you're a team.
I just think about the opening and the closing and how well attended they were.
Yeah.
And that was a surprise to me. I mean, I've done plenty of poetry readings and, you know, open mics and stuff like that, and like this was a very well attended event. And so that says to me we're still not near saturation point.
It's interesting to talk about the different experience, because when you're judging poetry, it's hard to judge because there's so many beautiful poems. This is the part where like sometimes you agree or disagree to choose the poets because all the poems are good. And I think this perspective is interesting when you see like the poetry walk, the experience, be there. I love the Art on the Trail opening.
Well, you know, you step into something with good faith, and you want to believe that you're making the right decision and you're doing something. But then when you see this overwhelming response back too, like I just felt I was in awe of the interest and the participation and just how everyone was so eager to be there and to be a part of every part of it. They were there contributing in a human way, which to me was incredible. It was very overwhelming in a good way. I do love the element of the outdoors with it. Like I think that you can't. I think one of the things that made this so special and unique from my perspective was, like I said, I've been to a ton of art galleries and art openings, and I've been to a ton of poetry readings and open mics and performances, but to bring the two together in the outdoors, I don't know, it was like soulful. It was just very soulful. And I think every single person that I brought to the space over the summer, there was a sense of reverence that accompanied their visit that just made it such a unique and good thing.
Very friendly with one of the artists who told us about the poetry entry, and Kira said, I want to do that right away. But I think the most amazing thing to me was how quickly that they just came out. She just wrote them all. Like, she actually submitted several poems and they just came right out, and then that was it. It was done. It was amazing to me because I'm not much of a writer.
I've seen similar idea, but not as well executed. I think there were sculptures that were intended to be more long-term. So they were always out in certain trails. So it's a little different than this, where it's a kind of renewed every year to try and see what else. And I think going and seeing it will inspire people to do other things and get some ideas of how it works. So I think, and it was really nice to see a lot of the children and families out there exploring it as well. It gave a new light to the trails that we go on all the time, so it was fun.
Branch flower. The squids ever so carefully lay by the lake, as they watch every drip and drab as the wind blows. Softly with its one eye, it sees everyone, admiring itself and its creator. All together when that love fills the air.
Please, come into the woods. We're starting soon. By the arc of the street and the light of the moon. I'll tell you a story about how the healing power of this land rebuilt a wounded friend from ash to rubble to a mountain again. Perhaps these words inspire you too in the end. Let's begin.